evening, everyone. I think we will open the meeting this evening. Roll call show that all counselors except for Tom Spitz are present. And agenda review. I don't believe we have any items to add to the agenda. We do? One? Okay. Moving right along to approval of minutes of January 7th, January 14th, and January 28th.
Move approval.
All right. Any comments, corrections, questions? Hearing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of the minutes? Passes 6-2. Tom, how do you feel about the minutes?
They look pretty good to me.
Okay.
You're a yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Great. We'll move on to public hearings. Public hearing A, to consider a Vittler's license for Nest Coffee LLC, 24 Main Street. Great, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the issuing of this license? Hearing none, I'll close public hearing A. Move on to public hearing B, to consider a Class 10, Class A lounge, malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license, special amusement permit for music, dancing, and entertainment, and Vittler's license for Irina Bazba Kostikas, I apologize, I'm Kelly Bosmapot, DBA The Dive Grill, Inc., 19 Mill Street. There will be a technical delay. Great. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the issuing of this license or these licenses? Would anyone like to have a free plug as to what's going to happen at this new establishment? Great, thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the issuing of this license? Hearing none, I will close public hearing B. Move to public hearing C, to consider the designation of the proposed Orono Basin Omnibus Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District, the adoption of a development program and financial plan for said district, and execution of a credit enhancement agreement with Hub LLC, 61 Margin Street, all pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 206 of Title 30-A of the Maine Revised Statutes as amended. The proposed municipal development and tax increment financing district consists of approximately 68.71 acres of property located on Ayers Island, the bridge, and land connecting it to the mainland, and an area at the intersection of Island Ave and Margin Street and identified on town tax map and lot 27-4-41, 27-4-42, 27-4-92, and 31-2-29-A. Thank you.
Very good. Understand that it is simply a box, a mechanism in which the community can, through the town council, can, yep, it's on. Thank you, Bill. Good job. It allows for the town to partner with private development to help attract investment into the community through the uses of credit enhancement agreements. So when you have a company like Hub or Orono Brewing Company that is at that location, when you're seeing those kinds of investments, there is a lot of upfront investment by the developers, and a credit enhancement agreement gives a mechanism for the investments that the council supports, that it can help offset those costs over a period of time. So in this particular case, a 30-year credit enhancement agreement builds that box for that 30 years. Any credit enhancement agreement that occurs can be anywhere from 1 year to 30, and frankly, it's entirely up to the town council in negotiations with a particular developer. So I think I'm trying to give you the highlights of it, and I stand prepared to answer probably any questions that you might have.
Well, this is a public hearing, so I will ask the public if they have any questions regarding this TIF or to speak for or against any of it.
I have a question.
Sure, if you come up there and.
Hi, Adam Toothaker, Forest Ave. So you can work out specific deals with specific developers in this TIF district. What was the specific deal for this developer, and if there was any lack of or any deferment of taxes, when is the town's expected payoff or break-even point for that? Thanks.
That's a great question. So the actual deal we have in draft form is a 44% return of their increment in tax. So they pay 100% of the property taxes owed. Of the new value, 44% of it gets returned to them. And that was, you would ask, why 44%? There's actually a calculation that was done that looked at the tax shift and the savings in revenue sharing by not showing the new value that the town will be able to keep, and also the general purpose aid to education that the town will be able to keep. So that 44% is a hold harmless number for the town. And the other 56% of the tax that we collect, we keep, and it goes into a development program account. That development program account has to be, those funds are restricted by those uses that council has proposed and the Department of Community and Economic Development for the state hopefully will approve. For us, they include the ability to do credit enhancement agreements, the ability to improve infrastructure, not only immediately serving these two parcels. We've looked out onto Main Street, Margin Street, Island Avenue, and workforce development if that was needed to for either of the businesses in the parcels. Debt, if we needed to incur debt as a result of activity, infrastructure improvements that were necessary. The town owns a bridge. If we were going to repair that bridge, that's part of what those funds could be used for, along with the general costs for economic development and marketing of the town.
Yep. The only point I would add to that Sophie so eloquently did was that in the credit enhancement agreement that's being proposed is that we're capping that repayment back at $100,000 as well. So if the value that their investment creates a new value that is worth 5 times more than what we had projected, then they would get those monies back until it gets to that 100,000 cap, and then it would end. So it's a 20-year credit enhancement agreement or $100,000, whichever comes first. Does that answer?
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Just come up to the microphone.
Hi, excuse me. Good evening. My name's Paul Schrader. I live on Hamlin Street. I have about 4 specific questions here. My first one, I was very involved along with other neighbors around 2000 when the original set of development proposals were brought forward. And I'm wondering how many people on the council might have seen this. I know the town owns a copy in the library. This is Ayers Island Development, a common sense approach. Okay, we've all seen that. I see at least 3 people saying yes. Anyway, there's quite, one says no, yeses, nos. Anyway, it was an attempt by the nearby neighbors to summarize like the whole picture at that time and come up with, what we called a common sense approach. Now, I don't know where things are at today, but there were several years of quite heated, productive discussions between the developers and the council and the town at that time. And I guess I'm here representing, leftovers of that. My specific questions are, and if anyone wants to have any briefing on what that was all about and how it came down and the documentation for it, I'm always available. My first question is, who was notified about this hearing or about this development or this TIF plan? What were the parameters for, when there was a Main Street initiative of, I don't know, I think it was last year sometime, we received a notice in the mail and said this was underway and there was going to be a hearing. I didn't receive anything about this. Who received the notifications about this proposal?
So, Paul, this was noticed like any other public hearing. There's a major difference between a TIF and a proposed zoning change. If this were a proposed zoning change, then the neighborhood would have been individually notified. A TIF doesn't create a change on the face of the earth.
Okay. So.
Sorry,
other
can I
than
just
notice-
add, I just wanted to add, just to clarify something that Sophie said, in case it didn't come through, is this isn't the first meeting so we've been, I think we had 2 committee meetings, if I'm remembering correctly. So we had 2 more informal conversations at the committee level that were noticed as regular meetings are, and then this is the first full meeting that we've discussed it.
Okay, well, I haven't been keeping quite up with the town as I should be, and like a lot of things, we find out after they happen, but fortunately I found out before this happened. I'm curious, who is HUB, H-U-B LLC?
Is the owner of the Orono Brewing
Will you be
Company.
speaking and introducing yourselves and explaining the project? Okay, and,
Just,
oh yeah,
Paul, they're not developing Ayers Island.
all I know is that the documents that I saw refer to HUB LLC as
Yep.
being the corporate or the private party to this.
Hub is developing the Orono Brewing Company land,
Okay.
and that there is, when we created the TIF district, we made it a little bit bigger than just the Hub LLC property, so that we could have some incentives for possible development in Ayers Island, but we do not know of any development going on. There's no proposals in front of us for Ayers Island.
Okay, well, that's clarifying, because when I read the agenda, it mentioned that the property involved was Ayers Island, the bridge, and the intersection. And that didn't imply to me that it was mostly not Ayers Island. It implied that it was mostly Ayers Island.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Dave can speak to a little bit more about why we included Ayers Island, but it was basically TIF districts are not, they're a little bit labor intensive to get done. And so we thought we would expand it rather than, have to go back.
Okay,
at some-
so
another
my
time.
understanding now is that it was the town's initiative to include Ayers Island on speculation that inclusion could bring good things for the future.
Right.
Okay. Another question I had was there's mention on the repair of the bridge. And, we all know the bridge has been an issue, was a major issue then. At that time, and I don't know what repair of the bridge means, I have my own ideas, and I've thought a lot about this, about what is and isn't needed as far as a bridge access to the island, and I've been on and off over many years. But the first time around, the bridge was costed out at around $2.5 to $3 million by the state. That was in 2000. I don't know if that kind of a bridge repair or bridge replacement is on the drawing boards for now, but we're talking about major dollars are involved in the bridge. So I don't know where that fits with your planning, but it somehow seems a stretch that that returns on a TIF finance would provide funds for repairing the bridge.
So when we put a TIF together and we create the development program, we have to put in anything that we think could possibly happen in the universe of possibility. So the bridge is there because if a major project came in that the town felt was so beneficial that it made sense to fix the bridge, which we at this point have said it's not beneficial to the community as a whole, the TIF would give us a mechanism to be able to borrow to do that if we needed to and pay it back with TIF funds. I don't think there's any plan at this point, Paul, to repair the bridge or take it out and put a smaller, work with the state to see if we can scope something quite a bit smaller, given that the dam has been taken out. But if we didn't put it in there now and later on something happened that made sense, we couldn't use the money that way.
Okay, well, this is clarifying, and definitely I'm on board with access and improving the bridge. I'm not necessarily on board with, let's say, all and everything development possibilities for there. Let's see if I have another specific question here. I don't see a I don't see a map here. Usually when something like this comes up and the parcels are described, there's some sort of a developer's map or something that shows what this is, but there's nothing been provided here. Is there a map available of what this district, if it's a district, it has boundaries. Is there a map of the boundaries?
There is,
Okay. Well, it's helpful to the public who come like me to take a look at a map.
So this
yep,
boundary
yep.
is the Ayers Island parcel.
Yeah.
And the 4-acre parcel that got carved out of the old Lane property where the old maintenance garage overseas currently sits. That's the boundary.
Dave, we found one.
Okay. Well,
That's the shaded area.
okay.
And that's.
Okay. Okay. I'll just leave this behind. I'm sure I can pick that up. Well, those were my specific questions and concerns. There are many community impacts for a large-scale development if it occurs on Ayers Island. Their traffic, their noise, their light, there are all kinds of things. We've been through it in detail in the past. And I just would urge the council and the people who are working for the council to be as forthcoming as possible, as early as possible, with what any of these potentials are. The current owner, I believe, of Ayers Island has had many years to actualize the dreams that the island was staked out to be the basis of. And those dreams have not materialized. In fact, they've kind of gone to ashes. There used to be public access to the island. There used to be foot access. There were promises about trail access. There were promises about open space. There were other promises made. And over the years, they've disappeared. Ayers Island is a kind of a festering wart on the town. It does have a lot of potential. However, I see the potential mostly in the area of preserving open space, river access, connectedness with a river trail, other kinds of recreational uses, and not a kind of development project. So anyway, I'm putting this public hearing, I'm putting my preferences out there for you to consider, and appreciate your being here and taking this on as a project. I hope it works out well for the town, even though it's in its very preliminary stages. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for all your questions. Does anyone else wish to speak regarding this project?
Hello, I'm Abe Firth. I'm here with Heather Firth. We're representing Hub LLC. We're two of the owners of Hub. Definitely excited that we had a chance to work on 61 Margin Street. And our goal with developing that property was to take a property that had been neglected for quite a few years and to turn it into something that was rentable to somebody like Orono Brewing Company, hoping to add to the Orono economy, create more tourism, add jobs, keep students and other folks in Orono. And so far, it's really worked out that we've been able to see those things happen since Orono went into that property, Orono Brewing went into that property. The idea of this TIF was really helpful for us deciding to invest in the property because there was a lot of risks involved with it based on the condition it was in. And this is a tool that has proven very helpful with other types of developments with buildings that are somewhat undesirable in their current status. So very helpful for us as far as deciding to take that size of a project on. Also can be very helpful for the long-term impact as far as further improving the area, and certainly hope to see Ayers Island find a great use in the future. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Abe. No, we appreciate everything you're doing. And does anyone else have any questions? No?
Thanks.
Thanks, Abe. Great. Hearing no one else, I will close public hearing C. Thank you, everyone. And move on to acknowledgements by council members. We'll start with Sam this time.
Several of us, I think all of us, most of us, went to the Bangor Regional Chamber of Commerce award ceremony a few weeks ago. Not Cheryl, it was her birthday. Happy birthday, Cheryl. You're welcome. But we went there to support Evan Reichert for receiving a well-deserved award. He was retiring as our town planner. But also, it was great to see the Orono connections were there. I know Abe and Heather won a similar award, or were honored with a similar award a couple of years ago, or was it last year maybe? But it's Course Storm, correct? Brian Rahill? Renee Kelly she doesn't live here, but she works up on campus, and it seemed like Orono was all over that, and it was just wonderful to see. It was a great event and well deserved.
Lori?
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. Just wanted to acknowledge that today at the state legislature, they had a hearing discussing changing the state holiday of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. And Mullion Dana, who's the Penobscot ambassador, spoke, and I support that the state would do that, because as goes Orono, so goes the state, is what I'd like to see. Since Orono did that before I came on the council, they voted for that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we are already doing that in our town.
Thank you. Tom?
I'd like to acknowledge the candidates who participated in our candidates night last week. There's one school committee candidate and 4 town council candidates. I thought it was a very well attended meeting. The candidates did a great job of presenting themselves. And I'd also like to recognize Mark Haggerty and Stephanie Welcomer for the excellent job they did moderating the evening. I'd like to suggest that may have already been done, but that the council send a note to Mark and Stephanie thanking them. We may want to ask them to do it again.
Thank you. Tom?
Well, I wasn't able to make it here in person, but I did watch it on the YouTube, and I thought they did a great job. And as you said, we had some great candidates, so that's wonderful. I guess I'd like to thank the town employees for all the hard work they're doing, especially the roads crew. I think we've had 3 thaws in January and rainstorms in between, and the potholes are terrible everywhere. Not as bad here, though, I'm glad to say.
Yeah, speaking of candidates night, I also wanted to acknowledge the all of the folks who came. And I mean, it was great to see such a crowd, folks who were lining up to ask questions, even of the one candidate running for school board. That was it was great to see. There were a lot of folks emailing and calling in questions as well. It's always very exciting to see citizens participate. And so please continue participating by voting in the municipal election on March 12th. Wait, that is the right date, right?
Maybe just a tag on that. Absentee ballots are now available. So if people are not going to be here March 12th, please come and vote early.
Carol?
Hi. I have had the opportunity to work with the Office of International Programs on the University main campus, and I would like to acknowledge the multiculturalism and the diversity of Orono and the students that that are in our town. Of those 12,000 students, there's probably 2,000, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's too much, international students, and they're such a pleasure to work with. And so I'm going to plug the International Dance Festival that's happening on Saturday. It's a great event. It's free to the public. Children like it. There's 2 shows. There's an afternoon show and there's an evening show, and it's the 15th year that this dance festival has been put on, absolutely free and totally volunteer. And it's about, it's another amazing event, I think, that happens in Orono every year. And maybe doesn't get quite the acknowledgement that it needs. So it's mine.
Thank you. I too would like to thank all the candidates that came out and that are willing to put themselves up for scrutiny, and wish everyone will vote in March. And I would also like to acknowledge that Councillor Spitz will have one meeting left before he retires. And so come to the March meeting. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to move the consent agenda.
So moved.
All right. I'll take a vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda? Passes unanimously. Moving on to new business. Order 1923, resolve approving the adoption of the Orono Business Omnibus Municipal Development and Tax Increment Financing District, the district, and the adoption of a development program and financial plan for said district. And I would ask for a motion not to have to read the rest of it.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Is there any discussion on this by council? We've talked about it a couple of times, but I don't know if there's any further questions or comments.
I think we covered it in the meetings earlier, but I do again want to thank Paul for his comments earlier today about that. And as we do move forward with this, as development comes up, I think it's a great reminder how important it is to make sure the community is notified and included in this sort of discussion. So thank you. I also want to thank Abe and Heather for the work they've done. With all this, I think it's a great thing. So, and Dave.
My parliamentarian reminded me that I just took a motion to waive, not a motion to move the order. So could I have a motion to move the order?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Anyone else have any questions or comments? I think that this has been another great way for economic development to work with our community, and I appreciate that. So, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of Order 1923? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Order 1924, order authorizing the town manager to execute a credit enhancement agreement with Hub LLC, 61 Margin Street, pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 206 of Title 30A of the Maine Revised Statutes as amended. I'll take a motion, please.
So moved.
All right. Any questions, further discussion, comments? No, we covered this pretty well in public hearing. So I'll take a vote on Order 1924. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 1925, order adopting ordinance amendments to the Town of Orono Ordinances, Chapter 18 Land Use, Section 18-31 Definitions, Section 18-126 Buffering and Screening, Section 18-127 Curb Cuts, Section 18-128 Design Standards for Streetscapes, Section 18-168 Site Plan Review, Section 18-169 Additional Information Required to major developments, Section 18-177 Site Plan Review Criteria, Section 18-206 Preliminary Plan for Major Subdivision, 18-210 Standards to implement standards for parcels located in the C2 district with frontage along Park Street Route 2. I have a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Kyle.
Okay, so we had the public hearing for this last month. So I guess now it's in the adoption stage. So yeah, I won't go too into detail as we've been over this. Oh, sorry, my name's Kyle Drexler. I'm the town planner. Sorry. So yeah, just to give a brief recap though, the comprehensive plan called for a transportation management plan for the Park Street corridor. That study was completed in 2018. One of the recommendations coming from that plan was to make changes to our land use ordinance in regards to the kind of the C2 corridor on Park Street. And and the amendments in front of you, aim at making those changes, trying to improve the accessibility and the safety for kind of all modes of transportation on the street, including pedestrians and cyclists, as well as kind of bridging the two sides of the street between the university and the kind of large-scale student housing on the other side that was new to the area. But yeah, for any specific questions.
Anybody have any questions for Kyle or comments? I just want to say that some of the illustrations you showed us early on, Kyle, really kind of brought the street smaller and made it much more pedestrian friendly.
Yeah.
And less of a highway type feel. So,
right.
And those are up on the town website, right? Yep. So anyone in the public who wants to see them and missed out on the earlier meetings can go ahead and check that out on orono.org.
Just advertisement today. All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on order 19-25. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Order 1926, order authorizing the town manager to enter into an agreement with Tanco Street Lighting, Inc. for the turnkey LED street light project for an amount not to exceed $211,631.93 for the purpose of purchasing and converting existing street lights to LED lights to improve energy efficiency and lighting quality for the public. And further, to authorize the town manager and town council chair to borrow the cost of the project from the First National Bank in the form of a loan for a term of 7 years at an interest rate of approximately 3.30%. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
All right. You're up, sir.
Good evening, Rob Yerxa, Public Works Director. So last year, council approved a contract with Tanco Lighting to conduct an audit of all the streetlights located in municipal right-of-ways and on town property, with the goal to create an inventory of all the lighting that the town has some responsibility for, whether it be because they're located in the right-of-way, or we have all the way to the other end of the spectrum where we have outright ownership of that. The audit created a map of the location of every single one of those lights in the town of Orono, what type of light they were they an LED light, were they not? And based on all of that information that they gathered this summer, Tanco identified 448 fixtures total that required conversion. Of those 448, 373 of them are currently what people typically think about a street light to be, the Cobra lights that are on the telephone poles that are currently owned and maintained by Emera, and then we pay a fixed fee per month for Emera to provide those lights to the town. 75 of them were already fixtures that were already owned by the town, owned and operated, so we pay a power bill for those lights, but were not LED and could also be candidates for conversion. The project that's before you now would take the next steps, would be the second phase of this project. So we're going to take the information that we gathered in the audit and create a project to convert all of those, all 400 fixtures, 448 fixtures that we identified, and convert them to LED, with the goal to provide a safer, better light, but also be far more efficient and cost effective, because LED lights are far more efficient than whatever type. There's several different types of lights out there that we have now, but this conversion would get them all to LED, less expensive to operate per month, and provide significant savings to the town. So the project would happen in a couple different steps, but the first step would be for the town to negotiate with Emera to acquire the fixtures that are located on the poles, so that those 373 lights that we don't own now become property of the town. So then we have jurisdiction on how we want to manage those fixtures. We could then decide, and it wouldn't make sense to acquire them unless we weren't going to, but we would then move forward with converting all of those fixtures to LED fixtures. Tanco would administer the acquisition of the fixtures, and then also the procurement of the raw materials. So the fixtures themselves would go out to bid. The Tanco would administer that part of the process. We would choose the fixtures that we want, and then they would administer the installation of those fixtures this summer, so that with the goal by the end of the fall to have everything converted over to LED lights. And then at the end, Tanco would commission the installation. So they would make sure that the process of the installation was done properly, that all the lights work from the get-go, and then also look at potential rebates for, depending on what the town may qualify for energy grants and those types of things. They would make sure we got ourselves available to all of those, but then also work with Emera to make sure that the change from our previous billing structure to the new billing structure went smoothly, so that we realize as much savings as we possibly can for the new fixtures. Estimated cost for the project. So the actual physical going out and purchasing and acquiring the fixtures from Emera is a negotiated process. So we don't have a set price for that right now. Based on Tanco's experience with Emera and specifically in their efforts in Brewer, they're estimating that the cost for each fixture will be about $100 per pole. So, and that is got some contingency in it. It's a not to exceed cost of $37,300 or $100 a pole. Following that, depending on, there was the purchasing of the fixtures to replace all the ones that we'll be converting and install it, and also all of the administration of the contract and all of that Tanco will come into with is estimated around $192,000. Adding a 10% contingency to that, the total project cost for the conversion process is estimated at around $211,000. And like I said, with your approval, we would move forward with executing the contract with the goal to have the conversion complete by the fall of this year.
Sophie?
So Rob looks at me because money is the next item we need to talk about. So we are looking at potentially saving. The estimate based on Tanco's analysis is to go from to save approximately 146,000 kilowatt hours a year. That equates to about $43,000 in operating expense that would no longer be there. When we take ownership, we're now responsible for maintaining the lights, which in many ways, Rob and I feel is a better situation because we pay for the lights whether they're on or not. And when we know that they're off, we put a work order in, and Emera has a whole host of priorities. Sometimes ours is a few weeks or months out. Sometimes they're right here, but you never know.
It all depends on the weather and what's going on. Sometimes in the wintertime, it can get tough to get even one light fixed because their priorities are with storm damage control and those kinds of things. So
we don't have in-house capability to maintain light fixtures. We don't have electricians. We don't have bucket trucks. So when we went out to talk with other communities who are doing this, there are a couple of vendors that provide that service under a maintenance contract that would cost us approximately $6,000 a year. That is Rob Yerkes's conservative estimate, so it shouldn't.
Very conservative.
Very conservative. So we've added a little bit in that to make sure that we didn't end up overspending. So that looks like a net savings to the town of $37,000 a year. I am proposing that we go ahead and purchase the lights using the public, what is remaining in the sum of what is remaining in the Public Works garage account. We've known that we've had additional reserve funds there. That currently has approximately $227,000 in that account. So we could keep it in the Public Works family and address some safety concerns in town. The remainder, that $211,000, my suggestion is that we go ahead, borrow it, and use the projected operating savings over the next 7 years to pay that money back. So it would have it would be net neutral to the operating budget. Right? So I reached out to our bank, and they are quoting a rate of 3.3% for 7 years and a payment that comes in just shy of $37,000 a year. I would go ahead and refresh that quote before we finalized it, but wanted to know that we had support for the project and an actual project before I did that, because we have a very limited amount of time from quote to execution of those loan documents.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So Sophie, we're still paying, or Rob, we're still paying our electric bill to Emera, correct? So what is Emera's incentive for us to reduce I mean, if their profits are going to go down, why would they do this for?
So the state changed the law to allow municipalities the right to buy. And they already have a rate structure that there's one rate structure if they own the light, and there's a totally different rate structure if the town owns the light and is simply buying electricity from them. And being able to put in an LED is where the savings is coming from, because we'll use less electricity, and they have to base that rate based on what kind of light we have, right?
Correct.
Rob, I think you were explaining at one of the committee meetings that we're not actually changing the arm of the light, just the head of the light. Is that
Right. Each individual type of fixture will have a little bit different installation process, but in general, yes, that's the case. We're going to take the metal, whatever kind of light, high pressure sodium light fixture that's there, remove that, and install a new fixture. It's going to look a little bit different, but it's going to basically be the same kind of structure. In some other places, for example, the bridge, we'll replace those lights with a different type of fixture that's going to provide far better light and be more of that Cobra style light. Decoratives, so the lights downtown here we still use the same pole. They just replaced the head. Those types of it's just the fixtures that we're changing out. Yes. So in general, the poles will all stay the same.
And how long do those, I'm going to say bulbs, I don't know what they are called.
Yep.
How long do they last usually? What's their lifespan?
So they're warranted for 10 years. The first 2 years, full replacement, and then over the next 10 years, what you do is they replace the equipment, but you have to pay somebody to do the installation. But they anticipate that they would last about 10 years.
We talked about this item in Finance Committee a couple of times, and just to emphasize a couple of points, it's revenue neutral for 7 years, but then it's revenue positive for the town. So we have savings from then on. And in that 7-year period, we have significantly better quality lighting in our community. So I think there's a real advantage to this program.
And there is contingency in this construction budget that, so you may realize that savings a little sooner.
Right.
Like I said, the raw estimate for the project is 192,000. So, depending on how the bidding for the fixtures goes and the negotiations with Emera, the cost of the project may be lower than what we're estimating, but it certainly won't be more.
Great, thank you. Oh, Lori, did you have a question?
I think I recall you saying that also these were going to be all pointed down, and so there would be less light pollution coming from the new fixtures than some of the old fixtures?
Yeah, one of the advantages of an LED fixture is that it is a focused light, so there is far less pollution. There'll be cutoff lights, so the light pollution from above is considerably reduced.
And of course, it meets a goal we should have as a community. We don't have it in an ordinance, but the goal of reducing our carbon footprint, or the amount of fossil fuel energy that we use to power the town, is going to be greatly reduced because the LED lights use less energy to produce the same better quality, but light in the same locations as we had before.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I'd just like to thank Rob for his work on this project. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, bring you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Adam Toothaker, Forest Ave. If it is going to cost around $211K, but we have $227K in the Public Works building fund left over, why do we have to get a loan?
Because we aren't done with the rehab of 98 Penobscot Street. So I'm comfortable taking almost 40,000 out, but I wouldn't really be comfortable taking more until we finish that project.
Thank you.
Great, anyone else? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 1926. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Order 1927, order contingent upon passage of Order 1926, authorize the town manager to purchase municipal streetlights within the town of Orono from Emera with an estimated acquisition cost not to exceed $37,300, with funds being drawn from money remaining in the Public Works Garage Reserve Fund. I'll take a motion.
Second.
Who wants, anybody need to add anything to this?
So I broke this up just because sometimes the lenders have a hard time if I put too much stuff together. So the first one included the borrowing. This one is very specific about how we would pay for a very specific portion of the project. Same project we just talked about.
Anyone have any questions or comments? All right, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of Order 1927? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Order 1928, order authorizing the town manager to engage Jennifer L. Vincent, MAI, of Hamden to complete a commercial appraisal of the former Public Works Garage located at 98 Penobscot Street at a cost of $4,000 with funds drawn from the Public Works Garage Reserve. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
And anybody want to be up for this?
You may recall last summer, late last summer, last fall, you had received a report from staff identifying the former town, the Public Works Garage. I had to keep calling it the Old Town Garage, and people were trying to figure out where it was. So the former Public Works Garage. And we put it out to bid to get it appraised because the DEP report identified that there could be 3 different uses of the property, would require 3 different strategies on how to deal with any potential mitigation on the property. So the council had asked staff to look at what the values would be for each one of those 3 types of uses. We put it out to request for proposals. Unfortunately, it appears last summer and last fall that every appraiser known to man in the state of Maine was extremely busy, and I couldn't get anyone to actually bid on it. But I did find out from a couple that they would be willing to, that probably after the first of the year, they would be freeing up. So after January 1st, I reached out to those and was able to get this bid, to have this work done. So the strategy behind this would be that you would receive an appraisal based on what those 3 levels of development, so that we'll come back to the council with recommendations, or at least give you the information anyway.
So just to remind folks that the voluntary response action plan, which we've been working through with the DEP to get for this site, so that when we transfer ownership, our liability goes away for the site. They came back and said, if you're going to use it for single family residential, you're going to have to do these things. If you're going to use it for multifamily, you'll have to do this. And if it's a commercial use, here's the plan. And so what we want to be able to bring back to council is Rob's estimate for how much the work would cost to be done, and the appraiser's estimate for how, what the value at each level is. Then I think council can have a really good discussion about the pros and the cons of each use and give staff some direction on the marketing. My hope is with a May 1st appraisal date deadline, that we would be able to get everything up and going to be marketed through the summer and fall, which would be, I think, a lot better than waiting.
Absolutely.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
So Sophie, when you say work to be done, does that mean the cleanup, the leveling, whatever has to happen? Okay.
Yeah, so basically, as Dave discussed, there's basically 3 tiers of remediation that would be required based on what the proposed use might be. So a commercial or industrial site is a similar use. So basically, you'd need to manage existing cover. There'd be restrictions on groundwater extraction, so you can't have a well located on the site, and also some gas remediation. So if they were to build a new structure or something like that associated with whatever activity they're proposing to do, they would need to line the foundation to prevent the potential for gases to be trapped in the building, those kinds of things. Relatively low impact for that use. Multi-unit residential would be the 3rd tier. So condominiums, those kinds of developments would require a little bit more attention to the ground cover, excavation requirements, those types of things, a higher attention put on the gas remediation based on, I guess, a larger development of that sort would require more excavation. So the potential to expose more potential polluted soils could come. Same restrictions on groundwater extraction, so no wells, that kind of stuff. And then a single family residential application would be the highest tier of remediation, where we would actually be required to cap the entire site with about a 2-foot layer of clean soil to prevent even further, and with some kind of vapor barrier underneath that, to really make sure that whatever pollutants may exist on that site stay locked down and don't create health hazards to the new development. So each of those, the costs associated with each one of those tiers, of course, depending on what the proposed use would be, kind of step up with each tier.
Is that site contaminated? Are there toxic?
So we've done a phase 1 evaluation and a phase 2 evaluation. So a much more in-depth evaluation of the site, and there were no pollutants found. But because the DEP has issued a no action assurance letter to say that we've done our due diligence to evaluate the site. We did some geoprobes, so we drilled some holes and did some soil samples as well as some gas sampling all over the site and found no pollutants. But the past use, the DEP can't rule out the possibility if somebody digs a hole over in the corner somewhere, they might find some contaminated soils. So that's really why we're in the remediation side of the world. But there are no identified pollutants on the site right now.
Does council have any other questions or comments? Okay, so
in terms of Susan Whitmore, you mentioned that a vapor barrier would be installed. So typically the functioning span of a vapor barrier is about 25 years. So at any following construction occurring, would that put a life expectancy of the building for about 25 years?
I don't know. I would say the intent of the vapor barrier would be to not allow anything to come through it that might be exposed with so I would think if you did expose some soils that might have been contaminated after 25 years, probably those vapors have found their way out somewhere else, I would surmise, but that would be I'm not really qualified to answer that question. I'm not sure.
just anecdotally on some of the things I've worked on, I know that there's, like what do you call it, a half-life, certain contaminants no longer become, they can.
And there would be a soil management plan associated with whatever development happened. So the DEP would approve a plan for whatever different scenarios for whatever they may find. If they did find anything, there would be a plan in place approved by DEP to manage that.
I think one concern that I have with that site in particular is that it's so close to the river. And that if there was any kind of contaminants on that site, that it would leach into the river. It could be doing it now, but I don't know that.
So when we went through this process, Cheryl, we used the standard survey in terms of all the things Rob talked about that would normally be required on a site that had been used in this manner. And DEP didn't like our findings because we didn't find anything. So they made us go back and do more testing and dig more test probes. So I feel pretty comfortable that we're not passing along. I wouldn't want to do something where we thought there might be a problem that we weren't either identifying and putting a deed restriction on to make sure it got dealt with, or dealing with it ourselves. This truly is we can't find anything.
And I would say there are no buried tanks. All the fuel storage over the years has been above ground. Most of the two really primary sources of potential pollutants would be that it was a salt storage facility for years and years and years. So that's the concern with the groundwater restriction. And then petroleum storage over the years. Of course, there's going to be a little leaking here and there, but we tested right where the fuel tank used to be. We drilled a hole, and there was no contamination in that soil. So we're pretty confident that the site's as clean as it can be. And since we left the site, there's nothing stored there anymore. We've removed all of the possible contaminants there. So we're confident that it hasn't been anything since the evaluation.
And it sounds like you really checked too. I mean, you didn't do a half job on this at all.
No, we spent